Paris, and then in London in projects finance and in capital markets. He joined BLF General Management in 2004 and was elected member of the board of directors and appointed Deputy General Manager in March 2006. He served as General Manager of the bank since March 2010, as well as Vice Chairman of Banque SBA France and Chairman General Manager of Libano-Française Finance. He was elected Chairman General Manager of the bank in September 2014. He received a master's degree in business law from Panthéon-Assas University in France, a master's diploma in banking and finance law from Panthéon-Sorbonne University in France too, and an MBA from INSEAD. Welcome, Mr. Raphael.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much, Hiam, for this presentation. I'm the lucky one to be here amongst you today. I would like first to welcome you to Lebanon. I hope you're enjoying yourself and are feeling the magic link that we all share with our mother country, Lebanon. It is a very special place. I'm sure you will realize it. Thanks to the great program prepared by Mrs. Hiam Bustani. I would like to thank her and the foundation for giving me the opportunity to present you our banking system. I hope I will not be too boring for you, especially on Wednesday morning, but feel free to interrupt me if you have questions and if you need more explanations on issues I will be presenting. You probably have realized on your way here to this campus the strong presence of bank branches on the roads and on the billboards. As I will show you in my presentation, banking is not only a major industry in Lebanon, it is the heart of our economy, the backbone of the economy, the pillar of the state. To understand the Lebanese banking sector, you need to know who are the players and what is the regulatory framework. I will then show you its contribution to the economy and why it became known as a case of resilience. First of all, the players. Our industry is highly regulated and controlled. So of course, we have to start with the regulator. First of all, you have the Central Bank of Lebanon. Central Bank of Lebanon was created in 1964. You see here its mission: to safeguard monetary and economic stability, safeguard the soundness of the banking sector, develop the monetary and financial markets, develop and regulate payment systems and instruments, develop and regulate money transfer operations, develop and regulate the clearing and settlement of operations. The central bank is behind the success of our banking sector. And this is thanks to the vision and leadership of the governor, His Excellency Riyad Salami, who gave to the Lebanese people confidence in the Lebanese pound and in the banks. He has modernized the sector and put in place the regulations that enable the strong growth of the sector and its strengths. He has also built solid relationship with foreign regulators and states, which is essential to our sector that is linked to the international networks of banks. We have then the Banking Control Commission, which was established in 1967. The Commission is independent and supervises the banks and makes sure they comply with the regulations. They control, through regular reports the bank sends, and send them regular audits teams. So they perform every 2 years on-site audits at the banks. You have to know that the bank managers, we do not manage our bank alone anymore. We manage it with a very close supervision from the Banking Control Commission. You have the Special Investigation Commission, which was created in 2001. The SIC investigates suspicious transactions and has the exclusive rights to lift the banking secrecy. I will come back later on the banking secrecy in Lebanon. And to comply with international regulation, we have set up the SIC. The SIC receives requests from abroad, from authorities abroad. They're asking about suspicious names, suspicious transactions. They receive them. They ask the bank if they have those clients at their banks, and then they do their audit. They look at the information, the KYCs, your customer information that you have on the client, and then they decide, if need be, if they lift the banking secrecy. Thus, this was put in place to protect the banking secrecy of Lebanon, but at the same time, comply with the regulations. The newest regulator is the Capital Markets Authority, which was established in 2011. And of course, its aim is to develop the capital markets of Lebanon and regulate it. And recently, over the last couple of years, they've been extremely active to help us develop the markets and implement the highest standards. So here are the main players in terms of regulators, and this is those you have to know about. Then you have the Association of Banks in Lebanon. The Association of Banks in Lebanon, it's a professional body that regroups all the banks present in Lebanon, so Lebanese and foreign banks that are active in Lebanon. And this association plays a vital role. It represents the profession, defends the interests with the authorities, state, regulators, and also abroad. For example, recently, over the last 4 years, we have been, I'm part of the board, and we've been traveling to US and Europe to introduce our banking system, presented because of most of the regulators or the decision makers outside, they don't know about us. And to show them how we operate and that we are implementing the highest standards. And we have been quite successful in the US and in Europe. So this association plays a vital role in the relations between the regulators, the state, and the banks. And finally, the banks. We have today 55 commercial banks in Lebanon. And this includes 13 branches of foreign banks. So it's a very high number of banks for a very small country. Just to show you the evolution, at the end of the war, we had in Lebanon 79 banks. So it's for a very small country, as you know. And thanks to the incentives put in place by the central bank, many have been acquired or merged. And this is how we have reduced to 55. Of course, it's still too many for a tiny country, and we have a very high competition in Lebanon because of this very high number of banks. So we should witness a consolidation of the sector in the years to come. In addition, there are 16 investment banks, and you have 10 representative offices of foreign banks in Lebanon, and also 40 financial institutions. So basically, this is what we call the financial sector of Lebanon. Lebanese banks have expanded abroad, and today they have a physical presence in 33 countries through 40 subsidiaries, and those subsidiaries have more than 250 branches abroad. This is in addition to the branches we have in Lebanon. And in addition to that, we have 61 direct branches in countries like Jordan, the GCC, Cyprus, and Iraq, and 20 rep offices. So it's quite an amazing expansion that the Lebanese banks have made over the years. Their presence is in Europe. You see in the major cities, Paris, London, Brussels, Geneva, and Frankfurt, and in the MENA region, so Middle East and North Africa, so Syria, Iraq, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Sudan, Algeria, Turkey, here it's in addition to Cyprus, but Cyprus is part of Europe. So this is the presence of Lebanese banks abroad. One word about the foreign banks. They were major players in Lebanon before the war. All the top banks were present in Lebanon. And this was the marketplace for banks for the whole region. They were all based here in Lebanon, operating in Lebanon. Of course, with the war, many have closed their entities and have or sold their stake and have left the country. Some came back after the war. Today, we still have a strong presence of foreign banks, and here I'm showing the banks that are still quite active. You have Citibank, which is very active in Lebanon. You have JP Morgan and Bank New York Mellon. So these are three U.S. banks that have a presence in Lebanon and are very active, mainly in correspondent banking. Citibank also in commercial banking in Lebanon. You have HSBC, was a bank in Lebanon and is active in retail banking. You have the Crédit Agricole, Société Générale. Société Générale has a stake in Lebanese bank. Crédit Agricole, Credit Suisse, Julius Baer, UBP are offering their private banking services in Lebanon. And you have, of course, the rep offices like the one of Standard Chartered, UBS, Commerzbank, and Itesa. And you have also the Arab banks that you can see at the last line. So it's still a very international place, and you still have many international players in the market here. But the Lebanese banks have took the large market share. So most of the banks, the international banks, are either offering private banking services or offering correspondent banking services to banks. Let me emphasize on the most important player of the sector. It is the Lebanese human capital. You have nearly 24,000 people working in the banking sector, and more women. Here also I see many women. And I will show you the evolution, which is quite striking. In 1990, women accounted for 36% of the workforce. Today, they represent 47%, and they will soon represent the majority. At our bank, my bank, they account for more than 54% of the workforce. So, and of course, this is due to the fact you have many young Lebanese who are, the men are after their studies are leaving to work outside of the country. Usually the good talent, the women good talent are staying, and you are finding that they are highly talented and effective. So, but this is also the trend outside of Lebanon. It's not just in Lebanon. If you go to any branch outside of Lebanon, you will see that you have essentially women working at banks, at least in the retail sector. This workforce is talented, very talented. And also I would like to show you the evolution of the workforce. In 1990, you had 28% of the talent pool, they had university degrees. In 2014, 75% of the workforce has university degrees. So it's an amazing evolution. And also, this workforce is very young. In 2014, you see 50% of the workforce have between 25 and 40 years old. So it's a young workforce. The sector continues to hire. Last year, 714 graduates and professionals joined the sector, which is a very high number for Lebanon. So I've shown you the players. If you don't have, do you have questions about the players before I move to the regulatory framework? Okay. This is the boring part. Okay, it's the laws. Today, our industry is not only in Lebanon and worldwide is highly regulated. We are bombarded with new regulations all the time, and we are spending more time on doing compliance and the police work, and soon the tax collection work, than doing business. So unfortunately, it's less exciting than it used to be. So the regulatory framework. First of all, what are the essential laws? The first law that I would like to talk about is the Banking Secrecy Law, which is essential to our sector and was enacted in September 1956. The second one is the Code of Money and Credit. This law is the main regulation of the banking and financial system. It covers the regulation of money, the role and functions of the central bank, the activities of banks, in addition to other activities related to banking and finance. Then you have the law 318 of 2001. I just mentioned it when I was talking about the SIC. This law is about fighting money laundering and criminalizing the proceeds of crime. And then you have the circulars that are enacted by the central bank, and we have many circulars. Those are extremely important and are related to compliance, the control of operation with customers in order to avoid any involvement in operation related to money laundering or terrorist financing, and all the requirement about enhanced due diligence. Implementation of measures related to correspondent bank. I will come back to this because this is extremely important. And the creation of customer KYC and legal compliance departments. This is the trend now in banks worldwide. You are hiring more people in compliance departments. Finally, you have circulars requiring banks to respect foreign regulations, and the latest one is FATCA. And FATCA is for US persons. I don't know if you have here US persons, but basically there is no more banking secrecy for US persons. They have to, even if they have account in Lebanon, they have to sign the lifting of the banking secrecy, and they have to change to share the information with the IRS, so the tax authorities in the US. Banking secrecy. I will read the slides because this is very important for you to understand. The managers and employees of banks and any person who, owing to her capacity or position, has access by any means to the bank's books, operations, and correspondence are absolutely bound by banking secrecy in the interest of the client of the said banks. You have to know that it is a criminal offense if you break the banking secrecy. So basically, you go to jail, okay? So any person who intentionally violates the provision of the banking secrecy law shall be punishable by imprisonment for a period of 3 to 12 months. The same punishment shall apply to any attempted violations. So any information related to accounts cannot be disclosed to any party without the specific consent of the account holder. Banking secrecy can be lifted only with the specific approval of the account holder, or upon the death of the account holder by her immediate heirs, or if the client is declared bankrupt. In order to safeguard lending activities, banks may exchange information related to their clients' debtor accounts confidentially and amongst themselves. But this is only about debtor accounts, so everything related to deposits we cannot share. So this is the banking secrecy law. Now, of course, with the evolution of the international regulations, we had to find ways to comply, and we talked about the law of 2001 and the creation of the SIC, and we were able, with the laws and regulations that we have put in place, to satisfy international requirements on transparency while maintaining the most important aspects of banking secrecy. I have also to say that we have developed today a culture of compliance within the industry, and this is very important. It's not just rules and regulation, it is a question of cultures. A few years ago, a bank was sanctioned by the US and disappeared. It's the Lebanese Canadian bank. This event has raised the awareness among bank employees of the importance of being compliant. I believe they all know now, they all understand that compliance is at the essence of our business. It is very important to understand that the Lebanese banking sector is connected to the international banking community. Our clients operate worldwide. They need to transfer and receive money. They need to issue letters of credits and letters of guarantees. In order to perform these services, banks need to have correspondence. So they need to comply with the laws of the correspondence. This is why we need to understand the laws and regulations that regulate the correspondent. This is why we're applying the US law. This is why we're applying European law in Lebanon when we are dealing with clients. And this is also very important to understand. The banking sector is a leader in the adoption of the latest international accounting standards. Furthermore, the central bank requires that banks be audited by 2 independent auditors, and one of them is always an international audit firm. So we are extremely well controlled. Our central bank was among the first to implement Basel II and later on Basel III. I mean, probably when you read the newspaper, you hear about Basel II and Basel III. These are the international standards of the industry for the level of capital banks need to operate and other important ratios and regulations. And the central bank goes beyond those regulations. I have to give you an example. Lebanon implemented Basel II as soon as it was enacted. The US never implemented Basel II. To show you, we started implementing it before our banks in France starting to implement Basel II. And as soon as Basel III was published, even before, in fact, when it was still a draft, the central bank started asking the bank to increase the level of capital and to implement the requirements of Basel III. And they even went beyond that. And I think this is an important point that I would like to highlight regarding Basel III. I will show you this maybe on the slides, it will be easier. Basel III requires a minimum of capital adequacy ratio. I will explain what is capital adequacy ratio, of 8%. Basically, capital adequacy ratio, for every $100 of loans you want to give to a client, you have to have a certain level of capital. The capital adequacy ratio of Basel III required to have 8%. So for every $100 to have $8 of capital. Our central bank asked us to have $12. So we need 50% more equity for the same loan, which is extremely high. And Basel III made a difference between a regular bank and systemic banks. So banks that are, you see, during the financial crisis, we were afraid that all the financial system collapsed. And this is because you had systemic banks that had trouble. So the Basel III is requiring those systemic banks to have 10.5%. So we are even above the level required by the Basel III for systemic banks. And this is to show you how conservative the governor and the central bank is and the types of high regulation that you are implementing here in Lebanon. I would like to show you, in order for you to understand also this conservative approach, the important ratios that you have to implement. Of course, this is just a summary of them. So first, I spoke about the capital adequacy ratio. I would like to talk about the loans to deposit ratio. So this is basically the maximum we are allowed to lend to our customers. We cannot lend more than 70% of the deposit we receive from our clients. Outside of Lebanon, you have ratios above 100%. So there is a big difference. And this shows that you have a high liquidity in our system. Furthermore, the central bank requests that 50% of the deposit we receive in foreign currency, in dollars, euro, pounds, 15%, they have to be placed with the central bank at a very low cost, so a very low interest rate. It's around 1%. So it's very low. In Lebanon, we pay on average on foreign currency deposits 3.25%. This is the average cost of funds. So we have to place 15% central bank at 1%. And we have also to place 15% of our term deposits in Lebanese pound, 25% of our current account, so the money that is not placed just in the current accounts of the bank, also with the central bank at 0%. So it's a high cost for the banking system, and this allows to have a high liquidity in the system. Also, and this is very important and explain why we're not hit by one of the reasons why we're not hit by the financial crisis, is that we are not allowed to invest in securities that are not at least investment grade. Investment grade is the quality, so with counterparties that have a low risk of failure. The only exception, of course, is Lebanon. We are allowed to invest in the bonds of Lebanon. Also, and I will finish with that, the maximum we can lend to one customer or one group of customers is 20% of our equity. And if this customer of the project is outside of Lebanon, it's 10% of equity. So you have a limit on the concentration you can take in terms of risk. So these are very conservative regulation ratios that the central bank has put in place. So I think I have the boring part is, hopefully the boring part is now finished, and I can move to something which I think is more interesting, is how we are contributing to the economy. Should maybe go faster. So, first of all, you have to know what is the size of our economy. I don't know if you have any idea. You know how much is the GDP of Lebanon? No? Any idea? Okay, our GDP today is $50 billion in 2014. And 10 years ago, it was half this level. At the end of the war, so in 20 years ago, any idea what was the GDP of Lebanon at the end of the war? $2 billion. So you can see the strong increase of the size of our economy. And it is important to compare the banking sector to the size of the economy. So what is the size of banking sectors? Total assets of banks in Lebanon, and this is excluding our subsidiaries outside of Lebanon, so just what we have here in Lebanon, and it's $175 billion. It's a huge number. Deposits, so what we are collecting from our clients, is $148 billion. So the level of assets represents 3.5 times our GDP. The level of our deposit represents 3 times GDP. This shows that we have a high level of savings in Lebanon. And this is also extremely important. 64% of the deposits are in foreign currency. So it's still highly dollarized. Mainly it's dollars. Then you have euros, but it's mainly 90% are in dollars. The equity of the banks is $15.7 billion. I will come back to this. I will show you the evolution, how we have built equity over time. And last year, the total profits of banks in Lebanon is $2 billion. So it's a very successful industry. This was the liability side. So we get funding from our depositors. We have the funding from shareholders, the equity. What do we do with this money? And this is what we do. We first lend to the private sector, and we lend $51 billion. I'll come back to this also to show you the strong evolution we had. We place with the central bank. Part of it is compulsory, as I show you, we have to do it. And other part is because it's a good placement. We have placed $64 billion at the central bank. We have placed money with foreign banks. This is liquidity that we keep outside. It's $12 billion. And we have an exposure to the government, which is $37 billion. And I will also come back to this in another slide. So this is, in a nutshell, the balance sheet of the sector. I would like to highlight the fact that we have 1,447 branches in Lebanon. So one branch per 2,700 inhabitants. And this is quite also amazing. I will just enumerate the banking activities. Basically, Lebanese banks are universal banks, and we operate, and we have this, all the business lines that you can see outside: corporate and SME banking, retail banking, private banking, treasury, capital markets, investment banking, and correspondent banking. So it's a quite sophisticated market. So how do we contribute to the economy? First of all, we finance the private sector. And this was, in the past, one of the criticisms that the banking sector was receiving. They were, usually people were saying, okay, they just finance the government, they don't finance the private sector. Well, today, we have more than 100% of our GDP financed by the bank, so for the private sector. This is a very high ratio, one of the highest in the world. So we are financing the private sector. Of course, this does not imply a high leverage of the local population, because there is a certain level of concentration, and I'm going to show this. But look at the involvement of the banking sector with the private sector. In 2009, we had $28 billion of lending for the private sector, we are now at $51 billion. This is in 5 years, 6 years. The loan segmentation, we are lending 56% of our loans to the corporate sector. Corporate is not like outside, and corporate, it's large companies in Lebanon, but of course, if you take the international definition, it will still be called SMEs. So, but 56% for the corporate sectors, and you have 30% retail, 18% in housing, and 12% for consumer loans, revolving cards, etc. This business is growing, the retail side of the business. The central bank has enacted also laws to take into consideration the repayment capacity of the borrowers to avoid a subprime crisis like in the US. So here, for example, you cannot lend more than, the installments that the family has to pay should not be more than 35% from the income, the monthly income. And this is very important. We also finance the trade of Lebanon, and you have to know that the commercial trade of Lebanon is in 2004 was of the $24 billion. So this is import plus exports. We witnessed a decrease over the last 2 years. There is an impact of the Syrian crisis, the fact that you cannot also use the roads to send goods. The Syrian market was a very big market. And also, you have the commodities, the price of commodities that dropped last year, mainly oil. The total level of letter of credit that we are opening is $22 billion. So it's a very large, we are financing the large part of most of the trade finance of Lebanon. And as I said before, we have now a strong retail banking culture. We have 2.4 million active credit and debit cards in Lebanon. 1,630 ATMs. You will see ATMs everywhere. We will not have trouble to get cash. The housing loans amounts now to nearly $10 billion. So it is really impressive. And the retail banking really started in 2001 in Lebanon. So over the last 15 years, we were able to grow this business. Now, the financing the government, this is what you read about in the press. And contrary to what the press usually say, we can see here a drop in terms of percentage of the level of exposure, direct exposure of the banks to the government. So the direct exposure is when we buy treasury bills in Lebanese pounds or Euro bonds, which are in foreign currency.